Hey, what's going on? I'm going to be doing a carb jet change out for elevation, for Colorado elevation. This is a motoped, 140cc. I'm working with the Mikuni carb. I'll show you how to do that. We'll get the new jets put in and then we will fire it up, get it balanced out. Thanks. Okay guys, this is a motoped. We're going to be doing a jet replacement of the pilot jet. The needle jet's pretty good on it. What you can do with needle jets is just basically adjust the rings on them. This one has 5 slots for the ring. I have it on the 3rd one. If you want a richer mixture, you would move it down to the bottom one, which would lift the needle up, allowing more gas. The needle's right here. If you lifted it up, it would allow more gas to come up and go into the engine, making it more rich. You usually want that for lower elevations. We have a thinner air up here, so we need a thinner mix. And I'm going to decrease the jet size for the gas going in here. This is where the gas fills up. There's floats inside of here. Once the gas comes in here, fills this up. You can see my gas is on and it's not overflowing. I'll show you the trick to that. Normally I would have that off. Gas comes in here, fills the floats up. Once the floats reach a certain spot, it'll stop the gas from coming in. When you rev it and you're going, the gas will come up and spurt up in here and then come out, and that's what the jets we're going to be talking about. The best way to get started on this, we're going to loosen this. It's usually 5/16. Then we're going to, if we undo this, it's actually going to bleed out the gas that's inside this bowl. We want to get rid of the gas. If there's a lot of gas, you want to wear gloves. And then we're going to take apart, there's 2 bolts on both sides. We're going to take the bolts off. There's an O-ring inside here. I have an O-ring. Some of them you'll see a gasket that's in between. Could be rubber, could be cork. Be really, really careful with that. If it does have a gasket, you want to make sure it's 100% clean before you put it back together. Smallest piece of debris, it won't seal, and you could have a drip or a leak. It could affect balancing out the carburetor. What's been going on with this one, when I have the choke closed, for it to, what I mean by choke closing, doesn't let any air from here go into the engine. Close the choke, gives it a richer mix so it fires up. Once it's warmed up, then you open the choke. What's happening with this one is once I open the choke, it bogs out and completely dies down. When I rev it, it has a really deep sound to it, which it's just getting too much gas, burning too rich, and it dies out. So I will show you how this works. So bolts on both sides. Hopefully the lighting, I'm going to switch the lighting around. Hopefully it's good. We're going to take off the air filter, and if this is restricted here with the air, it won't let enough air get in here, do a gas air mix, and it won't let you run, it won't run right. So a couple of different things. This is actually going to adjust your air. You do quarter turns on these. This can adjust your air as far as going in. So this screw here, when you twist this in, this has a throttle slide inside of it. The farther you twist that in, it will raise up the slide, allowing more gas to go into the engine, causing your idle to be higher. So once we start this at the end, you're going to hear how this sounds with it idling, and I'll make a small adjustment on that, and you'll hear the difference with how it idles. You don't want it idling super fast. We'll get this at a good balanced level. You also want it where once it warms up and you give it some throttle, that it doesn't bog out, but it actually just ramps up pretty smooth. So again, we'll see how that is. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain the gas out of here, take off the bolts. Once I get the carburetor down and I pull this off, I'm going to unscrew this, which is my throttle assembly. And when this comes out, you're going to see the slide with the needle, and then there's a plate on top of that with a spring. And I'll show you all of that here in just a second. You can see that O-ring. Normally there's a gasket, and that's going to sit right there, seal against that. This is the throttle assembly, this throttle slide. When this is loosened, that's our air filter. So this is your slide. So when I pull I'm actually going to rev the engine. I'm going to do the throttle. What that does, it allows, when this raises up, you can kind of see the rod in there. I'll show you that in a second, the needle. When this raises up, allows more air to come in, draws in more gas, puts more gas in the engine. This, when I twist this in, will actually slightly raise this up to allow more air to come in there. So that's part of the balancing process. We'll do at the very end of it. For right now, goes in there one direction. So it has a groove. There's a little pin inside there, and that has to slide in that way. Now this one, when we adjust this, you can see it right here, that right there. When you adjust that in, it will raise and lower this inside of here, allowing more gas and air mixture to get pushed into the engine. Okay? So now let's get this bulb off the bottom, and I'll show you what goes into that. But first, the pins I was talking about. So usually there's two jets inside of a carburetor. One of them is going to be for the needle, the other one's a master jet. We're probably not going to change out the needle jet, just because we can adjust the needle real easy. So there's a plate inside there. Once I have this spring out of the way, just tap it a little bit, and this will fall out. This holds this needle in place. This needle has 5 settings on it. 1, 2. The clamp, C-clamp, is actually on the 3rd setting. You can put it all the way up to the 5th. Now, the higher this is set, the more it sits inside one of the jets in the carburetor, in the bowl, and I'll show you that. And then when it raises up, it's going to allow less gas to come up. I have it set in the middle, which is pretty balanced for this type of bike. Best thing to do is go to a motorcycle shop. They'll tell you, they can usually pull it up on the computer and say, okay, set it at the 3rd ring up. So if you're looking at the 3rd rung up, that's where I have this one set. If I were to set it at the bottom one, this would be raised up so high it'd be really running a rich mixture in here. Chances are my spark plug would always be wet. It'd be stalling out, and my actual carburetor would overflow, and it would constantly be draining gas onto the ground. So this is really important. You can actually get away with changing out one of the jets just from adjusting this. Normally it's just the pilot jet you're going to be changing out, and I will show you that. Once you have that clamp on there, drop it back in. See how that slid through? This has a groove. We're going to set this in there. See how that holds it in place? Then when you put the spring down, that will not let this needle move anymore. So then we're back to where that's going to be raising and lowering. Okay, let's tackle this carb. Okay, so now that I have a new battery in the GoPro, I don't want that to run out on us. I didn't drain it like I said I was going to, so I'm going to let it just drip out. My tool's out of the way. So then what we'll do, loosen all 4 bolts on the bottom of the carb. Okay. Now when I tighten those back down, I'm not going to be using a drill. Okay. This is the carb